dogs that do jobs. Hello and welcome to another English podcast with Paul. I'm your host, Paul, and as always, unedited and unscripted. But I do have some notes, so if you see me put my glasses on and looking down, that's why. Okay, so if you're in the car, then crank up the radio, but focus on the road. If you're at home, put on your headphones, turn up that volume, and listen to my sweet, sweet voice. Only joking, I'm joking. Okay, right. Jobs that do jobs. Jobs that do dogs. Woof, woof. Dogs that do jobs. So now I find this topic quite close to my heart. I've had some rescue dogs in the past, and my family and I have had dogs for many, many, many years. So that is a little bit of a conflict as I've grown up and I've understood my preferred ethics that shaped and molded and sculpted me. And it's kind of my view that if you have a pet, like a dog, if it walks with you with no lead on, all right, you can train the dog to walk with no lead on. Genuinely, the dog wants to be with you. And so you kind of feel there's a balance, an equilibrium, much like the wolves and the caveman. Food and shelter as a balance that you give to them, food and shelter. In return, you get some safety, early warning protection, and a bit of protection in return. So that kind of equilibrium balance that happened naturally with humans and wolves, which is now humans and dogs, is still prevalent. If the dog wants to run away, then it obviously doesn't want to be with you. But if the dog stays with you without a lead on, because it respects you, then I think that's fair, and I think that's how I accept it and how I lie with it. It feels comfortable to me. But let's have a look at all the different types of dogs, and then we'll get into it at the end, why I don't like it, why I think it's wrong. Okay, so dogs that do jobs. So right, well, we have disability dogs. So that's kind of new in the last sort of 10 to 20 years. Dogs that can help detect if you're going to have a seizure, if your blood sugars are low, like insulin, people that have insulin issues where they could faint and have a seizure and die. So they are very, very helpful in that respect. Also, you've got mobility dogs that help somebody that may be in a wheelchair by picking up things off the floor for that person, and other ways of helping them around the house, things like that. And then you have dogs for people of hard of hearing or people that are deaf, in regards to like when the doorbell rings or a fire alarm goes off or their mobile phone goes off, things like this. So people can still interact in a regular life and gaining a lot more independence instead of having to rely on friends and family or people. So the dog gives them more independence. That's the main thing. And then obviously then there's the blind dog, as we used to call it, a dog that specifically helps blind people, whether to navigate the streets and pavements, or whether it's to do with shopping or anything else like that for sight reasons. So that's the obvious ones. Now is a new thing very much, is therapy dogs. So a dog might go into a hospital or a nursing home, maybe even a school, or like a special school. So these dogs are there to be cuddled and played with and stroked time and time again by many people that could be a little bit heavy-handed, could be a bit rough. Maybe they don't understand dogs. So these dogs have a lot of patience to be very calm and relaxed. All right, with no aggression in them whatsoever. So these dogs help a lot of people in that respect for therapy. And also for emotional support. So I think there's people with anxiety that are shown that a dog can help. Stroking the fur of a dog can really help with anxiety. calm the breathing down and help that person in many ways. All right, therapy dogs. So those are really, really prolific these days in many different companies that give support for care. All right, okay, so that's therapy dogs. Then we have police dogs. We've all seen police dogs and immigration dogs. So police dogs that might do crowd control or pulling down a perpetrator or a criminal that's running away. Or what else we got? Sniffer police dogs that can sniff out for drugs, things like that. We sometimes see them at airports as well, and other ports, whether it's seaport, airport, etc. So sniffer dogs, very, very useful. I know, whether they're smelling out for guns or drugs or whatever else that the police want to train them for. Now, you may not know about this one. This one's unusual. What about a fire dog? You may be thinking, what the heck is a fire dog? Well, fire services now use them, and they obviously put special shoes on their feet, and they take them into a building or a residence after a fire has occurred when it's safe, and they put little shoes on the dog to protect their feet, you know, in case there's any sharp implements or sharp glass or whatever. And the dog can go in and sniff for accelerants, you know, such as diesel or petrol or gas or anything that's been poured or planted to initiate the fire and make it much more rapid, because otherwise it would take a long time for an arsonist to create a fire in general. So often dogs, sniffer dogs, can sniff out petrol, diesel, paraffin, things like this. Okay, so that's the police and the therapy dogs. Then we have military dogs. Now this we've seen a lot more recently in on the news and things like this, especially when in foreign countries, in like war zones and things like this. So the military dogs, obviously they can be quite aggressive and help to catch a perpetrator or criminal. Also, IED, incendiary explosive device, like basically homemade bombs, you know, maybe with a tripwire or you stand on it and yeah, the soldier ends up with dead, basically. Okay, military dogs also used for trackers, for tracking a scent of somebody that's ran away, maybe a criminal, maybe like a war criminal or something like that for like a prison. So it'd be like a prison dog that could sniff and smell where the person's going. So I've just got images in my head, like of films where somebody escapes a prison and runs through the forest and over a stream and things like this. So that's what's in my head. And also sentries. So like standing guard at the entrance and exits or on corners and things like that. Places where in the military or any other guard duties are needed, the handler and the dog can stand guard and just keep watch and maybe just be a visual deterrent as well. Right, also then we have search and rescue. So big dogs like Newfoundlands are very, very good in the water and can help drag out a human being quite easily. Often more than one human being they can help rescue. So water they're very good at. And then you got search and rescue. Other dogs can help find like human bodies that are buried or trapped after an avalanche, for example, or after maybe a tunnel collapse, something like that, or a building collapse. They can even smell out human bones and blood. That's how good their noses are. So search and rescue often have dogs. And I know that often dogs and well-trained dogs from search and rescue from the UK and probably other Western countries send their handlers and dogs to other countries to help out with with natural disasters and things like that, which is good. It was good, helping out for a natural disaster. Okay, right. So those are kind of all commercial dog uses, you know, like through some government organization. But other more private uses, still often paid, but private, would be like racing. So maybe you've got a greyhound that's been racing or has gone racing. So greyhounds, hunting dogs. So you may have like golden retrievers, things like that. So when somebody's shooting up the birds, what birds is it? What birds is it? What birds are there? What birds? Pheasants. That's the word I'm looking for. Pheasants. Pheasants. Okay, pheasants. That reminds me of a very rude tongue twister. If you want to try this tongue twister. I'm not a pheasant plucker nor a pheasant plucker's son, but I'll keep on plucking pheasants until the pheasant plucker comes. It's a bit risque, that one. All right. Also for exterminating. So maybe you've got a terrier that can get down into holes and get the rats and kill rats. And then there's stud dogs, dogs that have good pedigree and good structure or whatever is required of a stud dog to produce a litter. Then we have farm dogs, like a sheepdog, for example, is an obvious choice. A sheepdog works very hard, runs around the fields, helps to gather the sheep. And then maybe not so much in the UK, but definitely in other countries where there's lots of forests and lots of wolves, for example, you can have guardian dogs. And often these are big muscular dogs, maybe like the Newfoundland or something a little bit more agile. And they often wear a really big, thick collar with spikes in it, so the wolves can't kill them. But these dogs are very resilient at keeping away the wolves. Often there's 2 or more of these guardian dogs. And I've seen some documentaries, fascinating how these guardian dogs protect the pack of sheep or whatever animals are in the field, you know, away, especially when the field is very close to the forest. Amazing. Like 3 or 4 or 5 of these guardian dogs will surround the sheep and can attack the wolves. I mean, the wolves are a lot bigger and stronger, but the guardian dogs are cleverer and they're I don't know, they've just got this tenacity about them, you know, and amazing. You should check it out. Check out the guardian dogs. I think it was America I saw it. And then lastly, we have got like sledding dogs. Dogs for going sledding across I don't know what, North Pole, South Pole, places like this. Maybe they're very popular in Iceland and Greenland. Yeah, those dogs seem to love running, you know, and the coats they have specifically designed for that climate. Often you'll see Instagram of a husky asleep out in the snow, really enjoying it and doesn't want to come inside where it's nice and warm because they really enjoy that I don't know, that temperature for themselves. And sledding dogs often seem to be very happy to be working hard. It's kind of bred into them in their nature. So that's kind of most of the dogs. That there may be other types of dogs that I'm not aware of, but that's kind of most of the types of dogs that have jobs. Dogs with jobs. Right, so try not to get too mad now when I talk about ethics. So when I talk about ethics, I'm more thinking about working hours. Who says when the dog has a break? You know, is there a trade union for the dogs? Oh, yeah, overtime now, overtime. You know, holiday pay. You know, we want more. You know, it's very difficult, especially with government agency dogs. So you can't go to a policeman and say, well, hang on, how long's that dog been working today? Well, it's 10 o'clock now. It should be finished. You know, it's weekend off. Maybe he wants to go on holiday. That doesn't really exist with government dogs. Now, I'm sure they have internal vets that work internally for them, and I'm sure they have lots of policies and procedures to help protect the dog as much as possible from exhaustion and things like this. But who polices the police? You know, you can't go and follow him back to his house. And you could say the same about the army dogs, the dogs that work in the army. If I'm not nice to my dog and I get reported, somebody will come round and they'll bang on the door and they'll say these accusations and I'd have to defend myself. But I don't know how that would work in the military, you know? So, right, policies, contingencies and cost. We'll get on to cost in a moment, but there we go, right. Oh yeah, it gets deeper, right. Explorate, can't even say it now. Exploitation and advocacy groups. You know, is there somebody out there saying, well, hang on a minute, you know, last year dogs were working until they were 10 years old. This year, you know, because of the price of this and the price of that, dogs need to retire at 9 years old. Who makes these decisions? Who polices these working times and working years? What's to say, especially in maybe a country that has very little policies and procedures and contingencies and advocacies? What's to say in some of these countries the dogs aren't working 24 hours a day, you know? Like maybe a piece of machinery. Back in the day, we used to hear about donkey sanctuaries because donkeys in Europe were being worked to death, you know, having heavy loads carrying up mountains and things like this. But the exploitation in the modern society would be with working dogs, surely. What rights do dogs have? Obviously, they have a right not to be beaten and mutilated and murdered, but it very rarely gets, because they don't have a voice, it very rarely gets publicized or talked about or even monitored that I'm aware of. I mean, if a police dog gets hit, who's to know? It's not going to come out, is it? It's not like the neighbor's going to say anything. If a police dog or a military dog or some other kind of dog within the government sector, they would deal with it internally, but nobody would know. Nobody in the public would know. Unlike me, if I have my dog in the public and somebody saw me being disrespectful or bad to the dog. Now, this might sound odd, but imagine if an alien came down to the planet, or you had to explain it to your children that the dog has to work, even though it has no real choice. The dog has no voice. They can't say, well, actually, I don't like doing this job. Can I not do it anymore? Now, you could say, yes, the dog is trained to enjoy it and the dog loves it and the dog's got a ball, and if it wouldn't do it and then it wouldn't pass the qualification, but you can train that institutionalized energy into any animal. So why is it that we retire the dog? Because you could say the dog still wants to do it. So why retire the dog? Because it's not as good as its younger sibling now. So there's obvious times where we as humans want to work and we have a voice, but there's times when we don't want to work. There's times where we want to retire early or change of career. We don't want to do that same thing. But we have a voice and we can say, no, I don't want to do that anymore. The dog doesn't have a voice. It's institutionalized to comply. I took a dog for a walk, well, just last night, and it doesn't want to play ball. It's tired. The dog's tired. But it can't help itself but go and chase the ball and bring it back. And then it won't let me have the ball when it doesn't want to play anymore. But if it goes for a drink or something and I take the ball, it'll go, oh, you've got the ball, I got to run for it. And often, even if it's tired and I've stolen the ball from the dog, it would still go and run and get the ball and come back. So, and that's now in this day and age. I had some dogs 10 years ago in my previous life, and we had to ring the vet because the dog was seriously panting and upset. And the dog said, the vet said it's because the dog was overheated. It was a Pomeranian, and it was a summer's evening. So it was quite late summer's evening, or 8 o'clock. And the dog was still really, really hot. And the vet said, obviously, this dog is not designed for this climate. And even walking around 8 o'clock at night, chasing a ball, it will keep doing that even though it knows it's overheating. So we learned a valuable lesson that night. We had to bathe the dog and put flannels on the dog with cold water. It was a very scary time. It was a very scary time for us. For a few days, the dog wasn't very well. And we learned that even if a dog is tired, it will still work itself. It will still do what it's trained and institutionalized to do, regardless of it being exhausted and collapsed. And as far as I'm aware, many other dogs are very similar, will continue, regardless if they're tired, until they're burnt out or till they're dead. And I hear this happens a lot with huskies. You know, sometimes they can just go on and on and on and on, and they'll collapse from exhaustion because they're like, yeah, I want to go, and they can't please themselves because they want to please their owner. So pleasing the owner and doing what's institutionalized is higher than protecting themselves. So we as humans and their guardians should take that into account and protect them, and bring down that level of intensity, inbuilt redundancy, if you will, something like that. So exploitation. Explaining that to your child must be very difficult, that the dog will work until it's dead. Then I said about humans versus animal dog needs, like medical testing. So, right, this one's a bit odd. This one's a bit strange. So we understand the need for testing medical procedures on animals so we don't hurt the humans. It seems a very bizarre concept. It's like, right, well, we think we're at the top of the food chain. We think we're the highest. We think we're the pinnacle, you know, right at the top. And many people believe that. But actually, it's a whole round ecosystem. We all need each other. You know, much like a man can't live on his own without going insane, without people around him. All right? All these animals is a whole sphere of an ecosystem. And for man to say arrogantly that I'm at the top of the food chain, I am the number one, is just pure arrogance and stupidity. But to put chemicals in the eyes of animals just so we don't hurt the humans, like, well, who said that the human is more important than the rabbit? Why? A pig is clever, more clever than a dog, but we choose to keep the dog as a pet and not the pig. So, and a pig can be more cleanly than a dog. So, whose arbitrary barometer is it to decide who is more important, who should live, who should die? This animal live, this animal die, or this animal can have soap in its eyes and makeup on its face. I know, or other animal procedures, taking the kidney out of a healthy pig just to put it in a human. So, hey, now humans can get drunk more because we can get a kidney from that pig over there. All right, we might have to genetically modify that kidney. But now, according to many scientists and some of the studies I've read, you can have a kidney that's been genetically modified living in a human for several months. Yay, so now you can drink more alcohol. Yay. Why is that pig's life not worth more than the human life? If men and... All right, not everybody gets to choose a disease. But a lot of humans don't help themselves. You know, many humans are overweight. That's not a disability. That's done to themselves. Many humans smoke cigarettes and get lung cancer, and that's done to themselves. And many humans drink lots and lots and lots of alcohol to themselves. So why should the human get to destroy their body then just to think, well, I'd take one from an animal? Oh, I know, I'm going to go out and get really drunk for 20 years, but it's okay, I've got a pig. I've got a pig in my garden. Yeah, that'll be all right. That'll be my kidneys and maybe my lungs. That's crazy. Why are we any more special than an animal? It's madness. Okay, but then also going on to that part, thinking about that and ethics and morality, the 3 R's. I've got down 3 R's. What happens to a dog when it's rejected, retirement, or rescue? Rejected, rescue, or retirement. So with a racehorse, if a racehorse is no good anymore because it's broken its leg, gets shot in the head, killed, because it's too expensive to keep going. And you could say the same for a police dog that's aggressive and angry, for its working career. When it comes to retirement, if the policeman cannot home that dog himself with him, and often the policeman has got a family, you can't trust that dog around children or around anybody else because it's been trained to that level of aggression. So lots of the time, police dogs, army dogs, military dogs, and even guard dogs are just euthanized. Is that the right word? Euthanized, where they get an injection, put to sleep, or in the old days they would have been shot. Given an injection and put to sleep for good. Because they're out of time now, out of time. You're too slow. We got another dog. So a dog's life is now down to the fact that it's got old. It's done its 8 years of career working or 10 years of career working. Now you're too old and too slow, so that's it. Wow, what audacity and arrogance we have as humans. Choice versus morality. So yeah, and talking about choice, like in Cambodia, they often use small animals like ferrets or like meerkats to help look for landmines. So yeah, it's awful for a child to get blown up by a landmine. And that landmine was put there by another human being. But we're making these small creatures work for us. All right, they might not get blown up because they're small and little, but how long have they worked for? Did they ever decide they wanted to work? Have they been bred for working? Do they have the choice? No. So these animals don't get a choice. They don't have a voice. And when we don't want them anymore, or they're no good anymore, they get euthanized, they get killed. What kind of society is that where we just kill an animal because it's not working out for us anymore? It's getting expensive to look after this animal. You know, he's too slow, get another one. Awful, awful. So, I don't think I need to tell you my opinion or my thoughts on the exploitations of animals for the gain and for the help for humans. I don't care whether it's for medical reasons, whether it's for makeup in the pharmaceutical industry, or if it's for protecting other humans from criminals or from landmines. You know, these animals, these creatures, they have just as much right as we have, and they never ask for it. They've never chosen to do it. So I think that's a terrible thing, where the animal doesn't have a choice. You don't see many zebras running up and down the racetrack. I mean, you can, but zebras are very difficult to train because they're very stubborn and cantankerous. So it's very rare you'll see a zebra running a horse race. And likewise, you won't often see a lion or a tiger as a guard dog because it's just too dangerous. It's a wild animal. These are wild animals that we're trying to tame nature, and it comes back to bite you on the bum. You know, you hear these stories of children being mauled and killed by dogs. because people are awful at training their dog to be aggressive, to try and be a guard dog. You can't have a guard dog and a family pet in the same. It's got to be one or the other, really. One or the other. Right, that's nearly half an hour. I better leave it there because I'm getting all worked up and angry. I'll get off my soapbox now. Now I put the world to rights, and I'll leave it there. And I'm going to go and have a cup of tea and calm down. Okay, so as always, thanks for listening. And remember, have fun learning English, otherwise you won't learn. Take care and have a good day. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.